Women are conditioned to be so focused on whether or not this guy likes us, we don't even ask if we like them. Now, before I go into that whole part, first of all, thank you for this comment and the second comment. Y'all, please go read these comments. I love them. These are my favorite because this is it. It's the idea of a relationship. It's someone to go do stuff with. Okay. So, like y'all, a lot of y'all know, I didn't start dating. Like, I didn't get into a relationship until I was 36. Okay. I was like a lone wolf doing my own thing, committophobe, one night stander, hate forker, expiration dating. You know, I'd had like a lover here and there or whatever, but I was like celibate for 12 of my adult years. And I have zero regrets about that. Literally the best decision I ever made because that's who I really found. That's how I found myself. I'm not saying everyone should do that, but I had so much trauma and so much healing to do that I'm so glad I did not date during that time. But when I finally did get into a relationship with the absolute worst possible person, because I had, my book didn't sell. My friend had just died. I'd moved to New Mexico and given up my whole life for like thinking I was going to write this book and it didn't sell. It was just like not in a good place. And then in comes this guy who's really good at eating and boom, I'm in a relationship and I think I'm in love. No, not love. Worst thing that ever happened to me, but still no regrets because I realized I had a lot of trauma and codependency I had to deal with. But I remember in the beginning why I liked it so much because every weekend we did something. You know, I was the person who was never had a +1 at a wedding. I had not even shared a hotel room with a partner until him. Now, I lived, as a lot of y'all know, I lived in my truck for many years on the road as you know, as an outdoor adventure guide and stuff like that. I've shared a hotel room with plenty of people, but like it was like 13 climbers. You know what I mean? This was never like a romantic whatever. And I was 36. All my friends were not only married, but like deep into parenting, right? Well, not all my friends, but most. And so I remember being like, wow, like I went to Six Flags with him and I was like, oh my God, I get to ride roller coasters with someone. We even took those old timey photos, you know, like the salon Western thing where, you know, and of course, I think back of how perfect this photo is. And I almost looked it up for you guys, but I don't want to like traumatize myself by looking at this man's face. So I'm not going to do that. But basically, like this guy wanted to be a cowboy so bad. He like his Gmail was like Jesse James, blah. Anyway, I was dressed up like a schmegs worker. And he was dressed up like a cowboy with a giant, you know, rifle or whatever. And I was like, how telling. The man did not see me as human. The only difference is I didn't get paid for what all he did. To me, not with me. And I love schmegs workers, by the way. They should be at the center of feminism. Anyway, I was so excited to like share ice cream cone with somebody. You know, every weekend we went on a new adventure. Because the thing is when you're in your 30s especially, and maybe in your 40s and 50s, whatever, when you are a single woman, if you don't have a lot of single women friends around you, and believe me, I try. I always put effort into making them. But then one of them would get in a relationship, poof, disappeared into parenthood. It's you have no one to do stuff with unless you find those single women who will do it with you, right? And so every weekend I finally had someone to do stuff with, right? You know, we went to like the dumbest museums. I love random dumb stuff. So we also went to like Carlsbad Caves. We went to a medieval festival. Like every weekend I was like, cool, I've got someone to go to stuff with because believe me, I've been traveling by myself for most of my adult life. I'm very comfortable traveling alone, but sometimes it's lonely, you know? And sometimes, especially if you're not like traveling to like travel-y places, you really aren't going to meet people to talk to. Now, I love traveling alone, but this was the first time I was like, saw the value of really traveling with someone until he became a terrible, angry man that, I mean, he was always that, but he hid it. Although I also willfully ignored lots of red flags and gaslit my intuition. But I was so excited, but like, wow, this is what being a couple is like. The first hotel room that I stayed in with him, I was like, wow. Now, of course, I was a waitress, in New Mexico at a pizza place, right? Like I couldn't afford a nice hotel. So there was like a hole in the wall, cigarette burns all over the mattress. The toilet didn't work. It was like a total like hole. But I was like, yay, hotel, right? I finally made it. I'm finally doing what those normal people do, right? But the hard lesson from that is that, I didn't want to be a lone wolf anymore. I wanted to see what relationships were about, what love's about, because I had completely tapped out of all of that stuff, right? In my 20s and I just didn't do it. And then I found out the hard way. What I guess I'd kind of known all along is that it is so much lonelier being in a bad relationship where you are not respected or seen or, feel invisible, other than to be the thing that someone else hates with all of their energy, that is actually way far lonelier than being a lone wolf. I don't suggest being either. I suggest being, putting all that time and energy into community, friendships, right? Not individualism and not romantic relationships. Maybe a romantic relationship will happen, but we put so much emphasis on that, right? And I didn't. And then I tried it out and I was like, God. But I remember once I took a break after that nightmare ended and I almost got from him, being like, okay, so I know now that it's really important when I date to know if this man sees me, if he likes me, if he respects me, if he cares about me. Like, this, I can't just be like somebody that this person's going to take all their mommy or daddy issues out on, right? All their trauma out on. And equally as important, and it took me a while to learn this, is that what's just as important is if they like me, do I like them? And I think a lot of women are encouraged to settle for any man who comes along who treats them nice, even though they don't, especially when those women get close to 40, like 35, they're like, oh no, especially if they really want to be a mom, they start settling for the man who treats them nice, who treats them well, even if they don't love them. They may think they're cool and may, like, I'll learn to love him. Now, I do believe that most relationships are going to be the most successful if the love is equal. Cis-het relationships, the love is equal, or the woman is loved more, but she still has to love him. And like I mentioned in that last video, that one guy that I dated, the French guy who said, I love you on day 3, he was just so sure that he loved me. And it took me 6 months to come around and finally say it back. But I never loved him. I kept trying to convince myself I loved him. I was really never that attracted to him. I didn't think we were really compatible at all. But I kept making excuses in my mind like, oh, Melanie, you're a committophobe. Oh, Melanie, you're too harsh. You're too judgmental. You're being picky. Look at how he treats you. He's so good to you. Just because he's good to me doesn't mean that I actually like him. Now, we know a lot of women sabotage really possibly great relationships because we are so afraid to be loved and feel seen because we're so used to, people who treat us like our dads who didn't see us, didn't want to spend time with us, didn't give a fork about us, but said, I love you all the time and blah, 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 right? Like that was me many years before. But after all the work I did on myself to love myself, how dare I betray myself and convince myself that I love a man that I don't actually love. And that is what I also want women to do. It's like, yes, it is so important to be crystal clear. Does this man see you? Does he love you? Does he know you? Or does he just see and know and care about what you do for him? Those are two completely different things, right? But equally as important, do I see him? Do I love him? Not how he makes me feel, not the dead void inside of me that dad left, not him distracting me from myself or is like a placeholder because I'm bored or any of those, or am I just, accepting whatever because it's better than nothing because I'm so afraid that no man will ever really love me. I'll settle for this. And that's where I think a lot of marriages don't go well, is that I really think we're not conditioned to ask ourselves, do I see this man? Do I respect this man? Do I see everything about him? Do I really, truly respect the crap out of him and love him? Or does he provide security, make me feel good, and all those other things, right? Because we talk a lot on here about how men will marry women for what we can do for them. And because of patriarchy, they exploit the crap out of us for all of the labor and all the stuff we do. Like they always will win. But where we screw ourselves over is when we marry men for the wrong reasons too, because all of our friends are getting married, because we want to do stuff with someone, because we're afraid someone better won't come along. I mean, we do a lot of this too. The difference though, like I said, is that when men do it, they still win. Like they lose because they don't actually get to experience love, but they still win in terms of dominating someone, exploiting someone, having power, having control. And when women do this, we might get treated well, but it's really hard to live with yourself when you know you don't really love that man for whatever reason. Maybe just because you're not compatible. Maybe because he's not working hard enough on himself. Maybe you don't have the same value system. I don't know. It's a lot of reasons. But a lot of us will settle for men who treat us well and do fill in the blank for us. And we don't even ask ourselves those hard questions. Why do I love him? Do I even love him? We deserve a mutual love, because under patriarchy, if that doesn't exist, we're going to get forked.